When you start looking into the potential causes of the Mandela effect, it does something to you. I mean, there are theories about alternate universes, other timelines. That's insanity. And then when you try to complain about it, they'll say, you're nuts. Your wife's name has always been Shield. And you'll end up in an institution. The idea of entangled timelines troubles me even more than the idea that we might be in a simulation with a glitch, because the implications are...
So you have all of these changes which are just deeply ingrained in people, from cinema to just, pop culture. All of these things that people know so well, thought they knew so well, seem to just be twisted just a little bit, just enough to get people to question whether or not what they remembered was real.
So I respect what they remember from their own timelines. The Snow White Mandela effect troubles me as much as any of them do, because who does not remember the line, mirror, mirror on the wall? How many times have we heard that our whole lives? How many times have we said it, seen it in movies and in other references?
Mirror, mirror on the wall, show the hardest workers here of all.
Everybody would agree that she says mirror, mirror on the wall, but now we're told she never said that. She says magic mirror on the wall.
So I started to research it, and I started to dig into it. I started trying to come up with ideas of how something like this could happen. How possibly could this happen? That led me down that path, to look into string theory, to look into quantum physics, to look into spooky action at a distance, to look into even time travel. Because if you actually start to peel back the layers on this, these are things that are discussed widely and are funded, heavily. I have a couple of ideas. And, the first idea was, of course, there's the multiverse. We'll say, because this is a theory, that there are an infinite amount of us's, and that with every decision we make, it branches off into a new reality. And what they were doing and trying to do at CERN is a collider where they're smashing particles. In quantum physics, there's 11 dimensions. So you have the idea that perhaps what we consider to be reality, maybe, in our perspective, it seems normal. But from a different dimension, perhaps not. And my favorite thought on this is simulation theory. Simulation theory is basically we're in a big computer simulation, and there's a lot of science that backs this up. If you're playing a game, you go into that dimension. Like right now, VR is a big thing. Okay, and when you're playing a VR game, you're in your headset, you're in your room or your apartment, but you're also in another dimension called whatever the game is. Now, an update can be sent out into that game. So if you're playing that game for months, and in that game there's a Coca-Cola logo, and they decide, I'm just going to change the logo, it would change in real time. You wouldn't know the difference, except for you're the viewer. So there are a lot of theories as to how this could have started. One of them, of course, is multiple timelines coming together. That something went down at CERN when there was all sorts of strangeness happening above their location around the same time, and then everything going.
This argument for probably being a simulation, I think, is the following. 40 years ago, we had Pong, like two rectangles and a dot. That was what games were. Now, 40 years later, we have photorealistic 3D simulations with millions of people playing simultaneously, and it's getting better every year. So given that we're clearly on a trajectory to have games that are indistinguishable from reality, and those games could be played on any set-top box or on a PC or whatever, and there would probably be billions of such computers or set-top boxes, it would seem to follow that the odds that we're in base reality is 1 in billions.
So we could be in a simulation. We don't know who is in charge of the simulation. Could be aliens, some people say. It could be angels, some people say. It could be fallen angels or demons, some people say. It could be just artificial intelligence. But we exist in this moment. So like when we go to sleep at night, we dream, we enter other realities. Who's to say that we aren't inserted in this reality? Our consciousness is here, but this is some kind of an actual simulation. And so the way to, say, test those that are in it would be to make minor changes. Minor changes to Curious George, where's the tail, right? To depends. What do you mean it depends? It's not depends, it's depend. To make minor changes to things that we all remember and know well, just to see who can be manipulated and who can't. Who's asleep, who's as some people say, an NPC, or who's waking up, like Neo in the Matrix. That's why I think this whole topic is so exciting, because it gives us the opportunity to believe that life is more than just working at the Piggly Wiggly and doing what we do. So life is so interesting that things literally the holographic universe. Now this kind of goes into my idea of us possibly existing in some kind of a simulation, in some kind of a hologram, but being more than that. The scriptures say, actually, that we're seated in heavenly places, that we exist here now, but that we actually exist in another dimension, another realm, in heaven itself. Hawking believed that we existed as information, ones and zeros, like that we're AI or something, but he believed that we existed on the horizon of a black hole, almost like a black hole was like a movie projector and projecting reality outward, so that we actually existed there, but we're experiencing reality here, but none of this is real. So this was his last famous work. So you have so many people that are bright people basically saying the Mandela effect could exist because that would be a proof of sorts that this isn't what we think it is, and that it is subject to change.
Start thinking about, okay, maybe there's timelines emerging now. What might have triggered that? If you start looking into that, that's even more troubling. Some will say it's the super collider at CERN, which fired up right around the time the Mandela effect streamed into popularity. I mean, they do things with particles there that we can't even conceive of. High-speed collisions, creating tiny black holes. You want to scoff at those, but when you understand the science that a place like CERN does, the idea that they might have messed up our timeline or caused some grand fluctuation, it's not that crazy. And if you're willing to believe there's at least a possibility of it, then it gets really troubling, because what else are they doing? What are they going to do next? What are the other the big consequences of smashing particles together in a way that humans have never done before? The statue of Shiva is still in front of CERN, and she's the goddess of chaos and destruction, which is an odd choice of statue to put in front of a place that does science in hopes of improving humanity. The goddess of destruction, it doesn't fit with me, but scientists are strange folks, I guess.
CERN is the largest collider in the world, and probably one of the most funded, and probably one of the most people are very concerned because it seems very occult. They've done some very strange things, like they got in trouble for performing a sacrifice, a human sacrifice, a fake human sacrifice that they filmed and released online in front of their, what they call their mascot, which is Shiva, the destroyer, which is the creator and the destroyer of worlds. It's a symbol. It's almost like the Ouroboros. It's a god. It was a gift that was given to them. It's a very spooky gift. And they actually, the physicists that were there, or the students that were there, they just did a mock sacrifice. But that's not the only weird thing about CERN. These people, even the very location itself, is on top of a temple for Apollyon. Apollyon, who, like Shiva, was the angel from the bottomless pit, who had the key to all things. It's interesting. Yeah, even CERN's logo, even the logo, many point out the fact that it looks like 666. And they have artist residence as well. A couple of years ago, they had a time traveler occultist who was an artist in residence there. They've done a lot of strange things. They've released videos. Their happy video, where of course the Mandela effect was addressed by one of their theoretical physicists there, where he was making jokes, where he had two signs around his neck. One said Mandela and the other said Bond number 1. And he said, we're behind it, basically. And Bond number 1, the first film, the first Bond was Nelson. Barry Nelson, I think was his name. So Nelson Mandela. So the guy's taking credit for the Mandela effect. Now, he could have been joking, because a lot of people talked about that, but once again, very strange. Yeah, the people that are involved have said strange things. The heads of it have said things like, sure, we're going to open up another dimension, but we're only opening up a little bit. Maybe something will come out. Maybe we'll put something in. It's very strange. Their idea is that if they can open up these portals to other, we'll say other realities, or other, that they can somehow get energy, and it could be an energy source. I think it's pretty spooky. Portals opening up, yeah. This is something that we see these videos all the time of this strange circular smoke clouds, and we see all sorts of strange things. And there are people that believe there's actually scientific evidence that there are these like stargates and from ancient times that are found and hidden. And I think we know very little about reality. So perhaps this, little testing's going on. We're going to see how much they can take. We're going to see if any of them are awake. We're going to see if any of them are getting out of their box.
The Wall Street Journal published a headline when CERN fired up saying CERN may open a portal to hell. And at the time, you might scoff at that, but now, years later, in retrospect, when you got the Mandela effect happening and you know more about the science being done at CERN, that kind of makes you scratch your head and wonder, and maybe even worry a little bit about whether the Wall Street Journal was looking into the future more than we should have been.
A lot of people were concerned with what CERN was doing, and of course, articles were written, many articles were written, Wall Street Journal being one of them, where the salacious headline was, CERN could open up a portal to hell. These are things that they would write to, whether or not they believed it, at least there was enough being given to them from the people they were interviewing that they thought that it could be a possibility. And there was some kind of outcry about that. People were worried what would come out. A lot of these people, like the creator, there's this thing called the D-Wave computer. The guy who is in charge of, the head guy, and he's doing these great presentations, and he's trying to, lure people to come work for D-Wave.
The shadows of these parallel worlds overlap with ours. And if we're smart enough, we can dive into them and grab their resources and pull them back into ours.
Yeah, Geordie Rose himself, where he said many times, the whole goal of this is to change the very fabric of reality, to take from one dimension to bring into another dimension, to take from this dimension and then to share in this dimension. And what they're saying basically validates the idea that this could possibly already be going on. Are people playing God? Are people playing God today? Is that what they're doing? Right? Now, there are only a couple of these computers, these quantum computers, in certain areas. Lockheed Martin, I believe, has one. Google has one. He says that we're trying to open up, we're trying to release, as Elon Musk says, the demon. These are the words that they use, that we're trying to bring back the old gods, and he uses very disturbing imagery when he says this. But he means it, because he says that AI of this level would see us as ants.
While researching the Mandela effect and therefore researching CERN, you certainly hear a lot of disturbing things, including some reports that scientists there have reported seeing apparitions, demons, things that may not we're not supposed to see. They come from other dimensions. If you poke a hole in the fabric of space and you peer into another dimension, I mean, what are you going to see there? I mean, I don't want to look, but these scientists, that's what they do. So there have been reports of some troubling things being seen, or maybe even coming through those holes in the fabric of time and space.
And playing God is something that they seem to do quite a bit. And here's the problem with that. If you're trying to, and they do this, they smash these particles and they create mini black holes and they do these very, very, I believe, irresponsible tests to recreate the Big Bang. But they don't know what the effects are going to be to such a thing. You could be opening up doors that you can't then close. A lot of people think that since this happened, since CERN came online, the world is a very dark place. It's a very different place. It's a very almost insane place today. Everything seems to be changing. It's not what we remember it. And who's to say that if they continue on with this path, that things aren't going to get even worse? The irony of CERN being built on this, temple for Apollyon. Apollyon in Scripture is the angel that holds the key, that opens up the abyss, where all that stuff comes out, all the spooky thing, all the locusts and the smoke and the torment, and it brings judgment on mankind. The angel of the abyss, Apollyon, holds the key. CERN has a key. They brag about that key. They hold that key. They do these videos where they're opening up these portals, these dimensions, and people are being sucked. It's very disturbing imagery. And that's what they're trying to do, is they're trying to open up. But who's to say what's going to come out? And if that happened, well, we could be in for some trouble. Because, I mean, it's in Scripture. It's right there, that in the end days, that, the angel will come, open up the bottomless pit, and all sorts of nonsense is going to come out of it. Welcome to 2023, going into 24. Yeah, well, they've been collecting CERN and they've been collecting antimatter. I've done videos on this. They have many experiments, from the Dune experiment to others. They store antimatter and then they've transported it, which is just, it's beyond me that they would do such a thing. Well, of course, antimatter weapons have been something that's in science fiction for years.
Fire antimatter spread.
And now here we have it. This is dangerous stuff. This is not, this is, once again, they're playing like they're God, and that's a problem.
I'm not overly religious, but I do have familiarity with the Bible, and I have all my life heard the reference to the lion lying down with the lamb. And it's a very nice image, and I remember my whole life. My paternal grandparents were very religious, and they would tell me some stories like this. They always talk about the day when the lion would lay down with the lamb. So I remember that image distinctly. Only now I'm told it was never in the Bible. It's the wolf will lay down with the lamb. And for some reason, I just don't believe that's how it always was. And I don't believe that the wolf lying down with the lamb is as powerful an image as the lion lying down with the lamb. So that one troubles me. If they can mess with the Holy Bible, I mean, boy, that's an uncomfortable thought right there. The idea that the Bible is being tampered with through timelines or whatever phenomena we're involved in here. The fact that the Bible is targeted, that just opens some uncomfortable doors. Is there a satanic power behind this? Is there some malevolent force that wants to hit us where we hurt the most? People take comfort in the Bible. You start changing things in there. People are very resistant to changes in the Bible. So if you mess with the Bible in this way, it's not very comforting. I mean, I must have said the Lord's Prayer a few 100,000 times in my life. I mean, everybody has. If you went to Sunday school or an AA meeting even, you say the Lord's Prayer. And the Lord's Prayer, to me, is always talked about forgiving others' trespasses. And now they're saying, no, it's never said that. It's forgive our debts as we forgive the debts of others. And, I mean, to me, again, that's just not, it doesn't evoke as powerful an image as the original version, the version I remember. And for one thing, it's not as musical. It doesn't sound as nice. Forgive us our trespasses. And that sounds like something Jesus would say. Forgive us our debts. It sounds like something a banker would say. It just doesn't jive with me. And I mean, I don't know if that's an actual change in the Bible, but I don't like it, whatever it is. Maybe it's because I've been saying it this way my whole life, but forgive us our trespasses while we forgive those who trespass against us. That's just a nice sound. It's nice writing. It's a nice oration. You put debt in there, D-E-B-T, and it just clangs. It falls to the floor. I mean, Jesus said trespasses, and he even repeated that word. It doesn't work the same with debt.
Let's just say that reality is steeped in the occult, okay? And people that are in positions of authority, people that are in positions of power, world leaders, like Angela Merkel, many of them have been known to gather at events that seem to be, well, we'll say, very disturbing. One of which was very close to CERN and connected to CERN. About 2016 or 17, I believe it was, I did a video on this. It's probably the most disturbing and dark thing I've ever witnessed and reported on. It was the Gotthard Tunnel. And it's basically the longest tunnel under a mountain. But see, there's a myth about this mountain. A lot of people don't dig into this, and this is really interesting. A deal was made between a goat and the people of that area and Satan. They couldn't pass through this mountain. That was the lore. So to be able to get through that mountain, it was already steeped in Satanism, is what I'm saying. The mythos of it to begin with. So when they bored through this mountain, they used something like, was it 66 blades, okay, or 666 blades. It was every bit of this was steeped in the occult. And then what they did was they had a huge production, huge, and they spent a lot of money on it. And they had something like 666 performers. Very strange. But it seemed to me like they changed something. This whole event, it seemed to, signal, it did feel a little bit Rosemary Beatty-esque, which is strange because, I mean, and very dark, but we have royals when Prince William and Kate Middleton had their first child, when she brought the baby out to be presented to the public, she was wearing the exact same dress Mia Farrow was in the movie, Rosemary's Baby. It was very strange. So you have all of this occult strange symbolism, not to mention the royals. They did their first portrait, Will and Kate Middleton, and she was wearing the vampire's wife's dress. The vampire's wife's dress. That's what she wore. Now you have now King Charles, who says he's related. He's a blood relative to Vlad the Impaler. He's literally related to Dracula. So here we see all of these world leaders steeped in it, steeped in this dark stuff. Now, I'm not saying they all are dark people. I'm not saying they're all Satanists or doing, because I don't know. It could be strange coincidence. But when you're a royal and you're presenting your baby, someone should be like, hey, that looks a lot like the dress Mia Farrow wore in Rosemary's Baby. And that was like the Antichrist, so probably not the best, outfit to wear. So in this same time, these are all connected. All of this stuff, Mandela effect, CERN, all of this stuff, extraplanetary stuff, all the things that are happening right now in the world. Very concerning. We got satellites blanketing the world, right? We got Starlink everywhere. We don't really know what's going on, but I do know this. I do know that this is an amazing time to be alive. And I do know that doesn't matter how crazy the world seems to get, because Jesus himself was sent to hell. This is in the New Testament, to deliver those from Noah's day that were trapped there. So it's almost like, we may be existing in a plane. They call this the place of the dead, by the way, because we're all physically going to die, right? That's one thing we all have in common. We're all going to physically die. So is it too far-fetched to think that maybe we're more than our physical limitations? Especially when you have things like the Mandela effect. Especially when you see things can change. Especially when we have science that backs up the fact that we could be living in something like that. So is something dark going to come out? Are things going to get worse, or are we going to rise to the occasion? And are we going to be set free?
I've heard of Stephen Hawking, the great physicist. Some say he's the best physicist in the world. He's made warnings about using caution at CERN and what may happen if they poke too hard or go too far. I think Mr. Hawkins was of the opinion that just because we could, should we? And I don't get the feeling that the people at CERN have taken that advice to heart. It seems like they're going for it, and whatever the consequences will be, that's what they'll be. I mean, if we're talking about merging timelines or something of that nature, the nightmare scenarios that could stem from that are just limitless. I mean, what if the oceans rise? What if they fall? What if the laws of physics are different suddenly? What if gravity isn't what it was? I mean, when you let your imagination run with this one, all kinds of bad things can go on in the world. But I think the worst of it is that these things will change, but when you point out the changes, nobody will believe you. So to me, the nightmare scenario is just losing your mind. People thinking you're losing your mind when all you're seeing is what's reality.
This is no different than it was back in the times of Christ. This is no different today. There's nothing new under the sun. Whatever's been, this is in the scriptures. Whatever's been will be again. Whatever we have now has been before. So this isn't anything new to me. I mean, I do see the world as becoming a much darker place. I do find that these all could be connected. There's so much occult and so much dark symbolism going on today. Many people don't even realize they drink like the monster. We'll say that monster drink, where it looks like 3 claw marks, but it's actually 3 Hebrew numbers, 666. Unleash the beast. People don't even realize that how steeped in darkness we really are. The Travis Scott concert, for example, which made headlines because so many people passed away, the entrance to it was a big mouth, and it was a very famous painting of entering into hell. And this is no different than every other celebrity that we see today. Megan Fox talking about how she drinks blood. These children today are raised in such a dark environment that something needs to change, right? Which is interesting, because today everybody is kind of going about their business and they're not really paying attention. You talk to them about the Mandela effect, they may just think you're crazy, or just they're so focused on their phones and what they're being told to think that they don't even think anymore. People are lost today. The day that we're in now is a day when people need to wake up.
There are a whole bunch of scientific explanations offered for what the Mandela effect, and almost all of them will tell you that it's just a flawed human memory. It's a trick of human memory. If you can't remember something clearly, your mind wants to fill in the blanks. They call it confabulation. And it's an easy answer for anybody who wants to be smug on a Mandela effect chat board to say, you fools, this is nothing but confabulation. It's your own memory playing tricks on you. The numbers are so big now. There are so many people who remember things one way that I don't think mere memory tricks will explain it all away anymore. I don't think that's a very scientific approach anymore, because this is just, there were too many people who remember Dolly having braces in Moonraker, and too many people who remember 4 people sitting in the car in which JFK was killed. So to call it, to offer some simple scientific explanation and call it a trick of memory, I don't think it's quite fair. I don't think it's quite honest either. If you're making a commercial, why would you put the actress from the movie, in this case Moonraker, why would you put her in there with braces if she didn't wear braces in the scene you're trying to parrot? I mean, that's not paying proper respect to the show, and I don't think a commercial maker would do that. In my memory, she was, there were similar commercials with Luke, I am your father. Why would you get that line wrong? Why would you put a little effort into it? Make sure you get the line right. But nobody does. Everywhere you look, it's Luke, I am your father, as if all of us are just remembering it wrong, including people who make a living in commercial TV and movies. She wasn't wearing braces. Go look at the movie. But you never hear of that. They make the movie and they make the commercial and they put her in braces and everybody accepts it. I don't understand. I don't understand how that just gets shrugged off. I think most journalists who cover the Mandela effect, do it half-heartedly or superficially. They will trot out the usual Berenstein Bears, Luke, I am your father, and that's as far as they'll go. You know, they'll try to get a laugh out of their readers, and that's that. I mean, they usually outright mock it, but very few of them put in the time to research a little bit, look for residual artifacts, like the JFK car. You don't see them talking about the museum that has a assassination car with 4 seats instead of 6. You never see that. They do a surface level thing on Mandela. Maybe they're afraid to approach it. Maybe it's a little too cuckoo for most journalists. You know, who wants to get a reputation of being somebody who believes in that stuff?
This has been a Cincinnati production. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, links are in the description.